Just briefly going to introduce David. I'm sure he'll be known to many of you. He's now a Conservative MEP. I think one or two of you know he was once in UKIP. Now, I'm not going to go through all that past history because what you're here for is to hear David. So without any further ado, David Campbell. Thanks.
Well, Simon, Steph and TFA, thank you so much for the invitation to come along tonight. I have a lot of respect for the TFA. It seems to me to be this bridge between the Conservative Party and UKIP. I seem to have ended up as a Freedom Association MEP recently. We live in interesting times. I'm sort of I'm reminded of the Chinese curse. Maybe someone has said to the EU, may you live in interesting times. It is remarkable what's going on at the moment. Obviously, one should start with the euro. I mean, I've been saying consistently for some time that I do believe the euro will collapse at some point. We have had a notice of this deal, but there doesn't seem to be any weight to it at the moment. And even the BBC have been asking a lot of questions of it. And the situation is very serious. I mean, I don't think we should celebrate the economic damage this will cause, but we should recognise that the whole thing was flawed from the start, forcing together with different economies under one central bank didn't work right from the beginning. But I think what's more significant about the euro from our point of view is that it's politically inspired. In fact, one of the reasons I got involved with UKIP, I was sitting next to George Osborne in 2000 as a Conservative candidate in the former Air Ministry of Goering's in Berlin, being lied to by a German senior finance official. We say, no, you're absolutely wrong in those terms. You're absolutely wrong, it is not political. But of course it is political, always has been. And the whole intention of the euro was to force political integration through economic means. And where are we now? We're talking of economic governance, we're talking of a financial ministry, one ministry, all forcing it together. But I think what we should take perhaps heart from is that it would be politically good news for the euro to collapse, because it is so much part of the EU project that if it did collapse, I think all bets are off. I do believe what would happen is that we would have a core euro area rising, probably, dare I say it, Greater Germany, Benelux, France for political reasons, maybe Austria might be attached. But this summer, the British government actually for the first time signed up to a two-speed or a multi-speed euro. It's very significant. It was quietly done in August, just between the riots, I think. But that is very significant, because really what it does, in my view, if you allow an inner core to move forward fast together towards greater integration, then all bets are off when it comes to the relationship with that inner core. I think we're into renegotiation, inverted commas, you're into a different relationship with the EU. That's something that Liam Hague is now talking about. You have some very interesting things happening politically. This new Open Europe group, okay, they're not all as vehement as we are, but 120 MPs are now discussing openly with the agreement of the whips, funny enough, about renegotiation, about withdrawal. It's become respectable. We haven't had it all our own way. Obviously, an in-out referendum has been ruled out for the moment. But actually, what's interesting, what David Cameron said in the House of Commons was about that we haven't proven the case for an in-out referendum. And something I'm working on, my team has been working on for nearly 2 years, is this positive vision booklet, which we're going to launch at the Conservative Conference next week. And the whole point of positive vision booklet is to present the argument, the case for withdrawal from the European Union, and to do so in a positive way. The reason we call it positive vision is we Eurosceptics are normally blamed for being too negative. There's plenty of material around when it comes to how awful the EU is, and we all enjoy having a go. But what about painting a positive alternative vision of a Britain that is better off outside the European Union? And that is what positive vision is all about, and I've had some interest from the media already, and we've got a good panel speaking now at the 7th of October including Roger Helmer, including Lee Rotherham, and some other MPs are coming on. So please come along to that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, briefly, what is Positive Vision about? There's two aspects to it. One is to tackle what we regard as the great myth of not being able to leave the European Union, kind of Europhile arguments, you know, you can't leave, the roof will fall in, the ceiling will come crashing down, you know, you cannot leave the EU, it would be a disaster economically and financially, and the cost would be horrendous. Well, let's look at some of those arguments, because they really don't hold up. I mean, one of the first arguments is, you've heard it, we've all heard it, 3 million jobs would be lost if we left the European Union. Well, what does that mean, 3 million? Where have they got that from? Well, it's 10% of the British economy. It's 10% of 30 million jobs. 3 million jobs would be lost. Why? Because we wouldn't trade with the EU anymore. We are the largest single partner, trading partner with the EU, Britain is. We have a deficit of 40 billion. We actually support 4 million EU jobs, continental EU jobs, of the 3 million supported in Britain. And what I believe, and what I would advocate, is a free trade agreement between the UK and the EU. And let's be honest, I'm on the International Trade Committee, deliberately, to look at all these free trade agreements. There's now 53 from the EU, with lots of different countries, Morocco and Chile, South Korea. Why not with Britain? There's another 74 waiting in the wings, by the way. So why not with Britain? And do remember that Norway and Switzerland actually export more goods per head than the UK does to the EU. So, you know, the argument 3 million jobs doesn't work. And then also something like, you know, we'll lose influence if we leave the EU. Well, we're losing influence fast now, aren't we? I mean, there's Baroness Ashton, there's you know, the CND treasurer, who's our new foreign minister, the most expensive lady in the world, her salary, 100 of her own diplomats paid more than our foreign secretary. And our embassies are closing down. And I think Bush House, the reason Bush House is being hit so hard is because of external action service as well. We are losing influence. And the point is, you know, let's not be the shy, retiring Britain. You know, we are the 6th largest economy in the world. We are one of the top 10 manufacturers. We have a portfolio of power, as diplomats call it, the G8, the G20, IMF Board of Governors, we helped get Lagarde a job. The WTO, we're on the heart of the Commonwealth. So Britain, and of course the city, London, is the largest financial centre in the world. So the idea of Britain being isolated on its own is ridiculous. I mean, you speak to the Japanese, they're not on their own. They're global, they invest globally. They were the 2nd largest economy in the world, they're now the 3rd, China's just beaten them this year. But they're not on their own, and nor would we be. So that is nonsense. So these really are myths, and there's a lot of them. I mean, another myth is that, oh well, if we left the EU, if Britain left the EU, we'd still have to pay for the EU, but we'd have no say. Well, at the moment, our voting power is about 8.4%. I'm one of 72 MEPs out of 736. You know, we lose a lot of votes. We lost more of the EFD, ECR, you still lose votes because we don't have the voting power. And we don't have the influence. It's not true to say that. So I think that's a nonsense. You know, that's another myth that we can chalk up. And on the economic side, the Swiss government actually did some figures, and it showed that, yes, it costs them 600 million Swiss francs a year not to be in the European Union, but actually it saved them net 3.4 billion. And Norway has only changed 49 of its laws to actually enact 3,000 EU rules. So I think when you look at these arguments that are thrown up about the EU being so positive, they don't hold water. And of course, one of the key ones you also hear is it's all about peace, and, you know, if we left the EU, we'd all be at war. Well, I think the EU actually does a terrible thing by undermining democracy in NATO. NATO pre-existed the EU, 1949, and we're undermining it. I'm on the Security and Defence Committee. There's duplication wherever you look, and it's weakening NATO, and that's not a good thing. And, you know, there wasn't a European war between 1945 and about 56, the Hungarian uprising, before the EU was created. And I think by undermining democracy, undermining NATO, that is actually more dangerous overall than this whole notion of, we've got to be in the EU because otherwise we'd be at war. So those are myths. And what about the freedoms? What about the reason why we should leave the European Union, which is more the freedom aspect, ideal for freedom association. But those freedoms start with the ability to take back control, national control over our destiny as a country. There are whole areas of policy that have been surrendered to the European Union. I mean, fishing and farming are obvious ones, but trade. We are a member of the World Trade Organization, but we don't take our seat because the EU actually does all our trade deals for us. And David Cameron, quite rightly, does some good work going to China and India and Russia recently to help British business do trade deals, but the framework deals are not done by this country. And I can tell you, because I vote on these international trade agreements, is they've been burdened more and more with human rights issues, social issues, and emission targets, nothing to do with trade. We're coming way away from free trade agreements. So national sovereignty and control obviously is an obvious one. The second one is control of our own resources. I mean, it does cost us, EU membership costs us £48 million a day. That's the gross figure, 17.4 billion is going to go up, and it's going to be about 10 billion net soon. But what would you do, especially in this economy? The Lib Dems last week saying, let's have some more investment on infrastructure. Well, 6.7 billion, which is the net cost. There's no increase in taxation, and we redirected that money to our own economy. 6.7 is 44 hospitals, 268 schools a year extra, 62 bypasses. That's money that we're already raising in taxation, or it's 1p off income tax, 1% off VAT. It's not inconsiderate. It's good stuff, and of course it's going up thanks to Tony Blair. The freedom to just run our own destiny. It was interesting. I spoke to the former leader of the Liberal Party in Australia last week. And it's so refreshing when you listen to him talking about immigration, control of the borders and other freedoms. That what they decide in Australia goes as policy. There is no supranational body that they have to report to or sign up to. And that sort of sense of freedom is what we want through self-government. There are many other freedoms that are obvious. I think one of the key ones is regulation. The ability to strip 100,000 regulations, EU laws, directives, regulations, decisions out of our economy. Working time directive is £12 billion a year cost on the economy. All these would really transform our future as a country. And I believe that's the way to go, and it really is the most exciting agenda. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I do think we live in historic times. I think there's a remarkable opportunity to make a difference, there's a tipping point in our relationship with the European Union. There's a lot happening, which is very exciting, and will go our way. But we must seize this opportunity and not let it slip. Thank you very much.